Some think entrepreneurship starts with an MBA. Today's guest breaks both these assumptions. She began with chemistry, built deep expertise in battery science, stepped out of the lab, and went to build a deep tech startup on a global stage. So, this episode is not about motivation, it's about courage, transition, and turning research into real impact. So, if you are a young researcher, a woman in STEM, or someone wondering whether science and entrepreneurship can coexist, this is the conversation for you. And I'm delighted to welcome our guest, Dr. Shalini Divya. She was my batchmate and she has excelled into from PhD to entrepreneurship. So I couldn't find a better person to talk to how to build a business out of a PhD idea or finishing the PhD and making it into a product rather than a theory. Welcome, Shalini. And
Thank
could you
you.
just
Thank you
briefly
so much,
introduce
Vaibhav.
yourself?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. I'm Dr. Shalini. I'm the CEO and founder of Tasman Iron. We are a startup based in New Zealand and now expanding to Australia and India, developing rechargeable aluminum ion batteries. Basically, they don't catch fire and are much more affordable. So the tech comes from my PhD work, and I've been working on aluminum ion batteries since 2017 now. Yes.
Wonderful. So I think you began your PhD in 2017 in New Zealand.
Yes.
But
Yes.
let's go back a little bit to your starting journey. You come from Kolkata, and you went to do your bachelor's in New Delhi, and then to masters in BIT Mesra,
Yes.
and then PhD was outside India into New Zealand. So it is a roller coaster ride for
It was. Yeah.
yeah. So how I mean, I don't know how to frame this question, but for a young girl in India because in India we have this mindset that you need to be into tech rather than the
Yes.
basic sciences. And there
Yes.
is always a debate that, okay, which is better or what is more fruitful. But you proved them wrong who says that basic science cannot excel or cannot be monetized into a product. What was your motivation to study basic science?
I remember this is a great question, by the way, because most of us from India, we know that either you become a successful doctor or an engineer. So I remember having this conversation when I was in year 12 with my mom on the terrace, and I told her that I wanted to study chemistry, not chemical engineering. And I remember the expression on her face. My dad, he's a retired banker now, so he was posted in another city. So the first conversation where I expressed that I wanted to study chemistry and not do engineering was with my mom. And then it was with my sister. Now, one of my blessings was that my sister was already an engineer, right? So you have one engineer in the family, and the younger sibling is free to choose whatever career she wants. So when we got our year, like the board's results came out and I had scored pretty well, I remember my sister fighting for me with my dad. As in, he wanted me to go to the engineering, what are they called? Where you get the seat that you want. There's an entire process where you have to go to the university and then you choose your seat.
Counseling.
Counseling, yes. So I was supposed to go to Bangalore for counseling for one of these engineering institutions. But I was in Ranchi, by the way, back then. And my sister was like, no, she's going to go to New Delhi. She's going to figure out which university, college she wants to enter. Because in Delhi University, it depends on the cutoff of individual colleges. So that's how it started. And I remember my father was not happy about it because when you get a bachelor's in science, what sort of job are you going to go for? Is it, do you want to be a banker or an accountant or something of that sort, right? Security apparently does not exist when people think of a graduate a degree in science or mathematics or something like that. But I had the support of my sister and my mom, so I did not care. I just went anyway. Delhi University is one of the most prestigious universities when it comes to science. So the background was great. And then I realized that the journey should not stop here. I want to get a master's in chemistry. And that was another conversation with my dad because he was like, MSc in chemistry, you'll end up becoming a lecturer or something. And I'm like, that's good. I like teaching. I have taught a number of invisible kids when I was growing up. So I would love to do that. So that's how BIT Mesra happened. And Yeah, when I was going for my master's, you understand that in the final semester, there's a project that you're supposed to do, the dissertation. It was during that time that I picked up energy storage devices, where I was working on making nanomaterials. I was viewing these particles, synthesizing these particles. I was doing everything. And then I was told that my job is to only create these nanoparticles, and someone else, probably PhD students in Durgapur, would be constructing lithium ion batteries out of it. I had already secured like the highest marks. I was so happy in that semester, but my brain could not keep calm. I was like, why am I not building those devices myself? Why am I not in the application part of things? So that is when it hit me that, yeah, my journey cannot end here. I want to see how these devices are built. And I remember I was the only one from my batch who actually went to that institute in Durgapur and saw the entire process. It was absolutely funded by the department. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to build batteries myself. I want to create the material. I want to test in the testers and see what the batteries do. That is how I was like, yep, this is going to be my PhD work. But little did I know that India's population was going to go against me because it's so competitive, right? So thankfully, I had cleared the GATE exam, which is important when you want a PhD, but it was not enough, unfortunately. I was invited to a lot of interviews in the IITs, but it did not happen. And ultimately, my master's professor, she advised that you can apply for scholarships, in universities outside of India. That is how New Zealand happened. They came up with the best PhD supervisor because getting a good supervisor is the biggest thing for a PhD, and also a good stipend. So that's why I was here in New Zealand in 2017. That's my journey.
So it is a story of wall breaking. Always you were breaking the walls which
Yeah.
ever appeared in front of you. And from your story, the key lessons I understand is always not being concentrated to the shields the society offers to us. It can be through your parents, it can be through your friends, or the mindset in the society. But in the end, if you think that you are being caged into that perception wall, you should always be ready to break those walls. And the second thing is to ask the right questions. So for
Yes.
example, you were having conversations with your dad and with your sister and everyone, and trying to convince them what you believed in. So I think that is a very important skill for the young ones who are looking a career into either entrepreneurship or deep tech building or whatever. But it should start with your genuine curiosity and the right questions.
Yes.
um, o- as you mentioned about the struggle of finding PhD in India, because okay, the bachelors and the masters you can still somehow, because if you don't get into the nice government institutions, there is always some private university, good private universities, even at par with the IITs or NITs, like for example BITS Pilani or Manipal and so BIT Mesra. So there are options which you can try to navigate through. But for example, PhD is such a narrow topic, and it is topic based study. So, and when you select a topic, you need to find a guru or a person of very high caliber in the academia who can rightfully guide you through that journey. Finding I want to talk to you about the struggles of, because I have been also on that page when we try to find out best PhDs options in India, but there are so many walls. Let it be because of the bureaucracy or because of the academic biases, or I don't know. There are several issues, but I would like to ask you, because if you can guide the students, or specifically masters or bachelors, that there is a world beyond the IITs, and it,
Yes.
it can
Oh
be
my
much
God. Yes.
rewarding.
Yes. Yes.
How to if somebody listening is stuck into this cycle where they are not thinking beyond Indian institutions, what would be your guidance?
I think, firstly, what we need to understand is money plays a very important role when we start thinking about education outside of India, right? So, We come from a working class family. We cannot afford 80 lakhs or 90 lakhs of tuition fees for a US or an American university, right? So the first thing that I needed to understand was, how do the scholarships work? How am I going to sustain myself if I'm going for a PhD or masters, right? People go for masters. You need to understand that it's not just the curriculum that is important, but it's your confidence. You are leaving your country. You are thinking of leaving your country, and therefore sustaining yourself becomes a big part of it. So because I was looking into fully, like 100% scholarships, search narrowed down completely. I remember I had written emails to almost 200 or 220 professors around the world. And I only got response from maybe 25. And the reason was, I was very specific in my email that I was looking for fully paid scholarships, not partially funded or anything. It all comes down to, if you are looking for a PhD or anything in India or elsewhere, you need to be very clear, as in, what do you want to do? How do you see yourself in that PhD? The supervisor plays a very important role. No matter where you are, if your drive, if your passion is not in the right place, people can misguide you. And it doesn't matter if you're New Zealand or India or wherever, right? So make sure that you are passionate enough to go for a PhD. Secondly, figure out which are the best institutions in the world that will help you with it. So I'm just going to obviously speak about what I did. I wanted to get a PhD on lithium ion batteries. I looked for scholarships and professors who were doing amazing research on lithium ion batteries. Does not matter if it's commercialized or not. And that is why there were almost 250 professors that I wrote to. But then it was about who has published the recent most papers, who has a big, like funding round, or PhD students or postdocs and everything. Do your due diligence well. Make sure that you understand what the decorum of the potential PhD group that you want to get into is. A lot of PhD groups in India, they suffer because the culture is extremely toxic. You're not just working for your PhD. Sometimes you're working for your supervisor, and that is unacceptable. I've had friends in New Zealand who had supervisors asking them to babysit their kids, and they took those complaints to the university's head office and, the research offices. So make sure that you set your priorities as a student right. Make sure that you understand the structure of the university that you're applying for. And most importantly, if you are coming from a background where wealth is not the first thing, that you're being offered, look into scholarships first thing. Like, even before you look into supervisors, look for fully paid scholarships, because that is when you realize the world has so much to offer. The DART scholarship in Germany, you have a lot of universities in Canada offering you like 60% of your stipend and so on and so forth. So it's a task. It's a heavy due diligence that you need to do, and that is where passion comes in. If you're not passionate, you're not going to put in those hours in researching the institute you want to be in. So be passionate, be bold, and do your due diligence at the right time. And yeah, it will not matter if you're in IIT or elsewhere, as long as you know what you're going for works for you.
Yeah, as we know, any career cannot be built in 1 year. It takes a 10 long years to stick to something, to make something meaningful out of it. As you said about the situation of the PhD in India, it's very daunting to hear that. But we all know I mean, whoever is into academia, they all know what is the situation. Not only in India, but maybe also in China also. So where there is mass, it is always a problem. Then the population
Yes.
always affects the smoothness of running a academic institution, for sure. And then we have, as you mentioned, that you applied for, let's say, 200 professors for your PhD. So one should also realize that it is not going to be an easy cake.
Not at all.
Even if the reply rate is 10% or 5%, I mean, you don't need 10 professors to make your PhD. You just need one.
Yeah, exactly.
Who cares? Like, if you get a really good response from a professor who is into your field, as you mentioned, another important thing is to look for a fully scholarship project, because As when I was also doing, I got offers from UK and Canada, but many places only cover your tuition fee, which will not
Exactly.
be enough for you, because then in that case it's a trap, because I consider it as a trap. I mean, if you are financially well to do off, then okay, you can
Yeah,
look for
that's
such
fine. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
opportunity,
yeah, yeah.
because in that case you will be working half time to cover yourself up, like for your
Exactly. Yep.
apartment rent or your daily expenses. But if it is a fully funded scholarship, it means you can fully focus on your study and
Yes.
your project. Moving forward, there is also a big dilemma into the PhD world. Let me share you a very interesting story I heard recently. I read an article about it from China, that in some Chinese universities, what they are doing is they have changed the curricula to, for example, in many universities, it is still a case that if you write a few good papers in very good journals about your work, and it gets published, that is one of the prime criterias to get the PhD done. But
Yes.
now I think with this AI revolution, and we need to be, I mean, the institutions need to be thinking very drastically about how the PhD curricula should evolve. And that story about the Chinese universities doing is like they have made mandatory for their PhD students to get some TRL 6 7 level product out of their PhD. So
Oh,
if you
wow.
are not getting a product out of your PhD, then it will be hard for them to graduate with the PhD. But in some form, I think people will have to evolve after this, because let me be clear, like 5 years ago or 6 years ago, when we started our PhD or in middle of our PhD, if we wanted to write a review paper, it would take us at least 6 months 8 months to
Yes.
collect
Yes.
100 200 articles, read
Yeah.
500 articles, and then you narrow down and you make these Excel files, you filter out,
The
blah blah
libraries
blah.
were so huge. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your computer is full of papers, which sometimes is exactly your work and sometimes in
Mm.
the periphery
Yeah.
of your work. But in the end, I mean, what I try to say is that the work which was being done in 6 8 months, now you can do over a week period or 2 weeks period, because there are so many AI tools which you can use. And even, for example, the writing, I mean, it as a skill, I am not very optimistic with the AI writing all the time, but of course, it can be helpful for getting out of this writer blockage
Yeah.
sometimes. But to do the full writing, or I mean, there are so many papers also coming out like that, fully written by ChatGPT or etc. But I think the curricula needs to be, for the PhDs, need to evolve, because we should, because previously what was happening was that a lot of theoretical work was being done, and a lot of your PhD time was carried away in writing and with the paper structure templating, which is now 2 buttons away from you.
Yeah.
You can do that in much shorter time, and you can customize it as per the journal requirements, collecting the citations, etc., etc. The extra work previously, 5 years ago, which was the PhD took you a lot of time of that into that part. Now the students can use those time to like build real projects, or at least half reality projects. I mean, which
Yeah.
is making some sense, in the sense ki, that when you go to a investor for your, with your project, it makes some business sense. I'm not totally for it, because
Mhm.
sometimes the study is really basic science and basic true science in that matter. I mean, somewhere we have to overcome this writing obligations, because I don't think it, like in the times where you can write a 5 page work using some LLM, which was like 10 days previously. So how do you think that or what do you think about this evolving curricula and changing atmosphere with the AI tools?
I am not exactly in favor of that, because back in our time, we developed a skill set. You know, when you learn to write a scientific paper, we learned how to bring down 40 pages of our research and analysis into 1.5 page, right? You need to make sure, as in, you need to learn the art of storytelling. If these universities are creating the atmosphere where you have to have, or in some subjects, you need to have a TRL 6 or TRL 7 kind of an product, that takes away the basic science questions. So, firstly, let's say that great. ChatGPT is writing your papers. You get your PhD at the end of, 4 years or 5 years. That is fine. But at the end of the day, when you try to commercialize something, that product is born because a number of years were given into the basic research, basic science of it. What you have told me sounds like a rat race, because yes, it sounds very attractive that a PhD student will go to an investor with an almost ready product. That can only work if you're improvising something that already existed, where the basic science has been captured and your PhD is actually about improving the performance of that product, right? Other than that, when you think of bringing a tech from lab into the market, science matters a lot. Like, yes, investment is required. Investors do not care about basic science, but your company is going to crash if you do not care about the science. Give enough investment or time to R&D, right? Technical development, the IP, all of that becomes extremely critical. So I am very scared about what you just said, because China is doing it. Maybe they have the infrastructure. Maybe, like, for example, if I am a supervisor and I have 25 PhD students and one of them is working on the basic science, the other one is developing a product, the other one is implementing the commercialization side of things. That sounds super cool. But if I think of a normal PhD group that I've seen in India or where I come from, it would be pretty dangerous if my PhD outcome is based on TRLs. Because then my mindset as a student is not to research, it's not to learn about how to create something, but it's just about, let's pick something up, let's make it better by doing some sort of incremental work, not basic sciences. And that does not help the world. Like, all of us, we want China to capture our product. At the end of the day, it's one of the biggest markets, like US and India. But having said that, academia needs to be a bit different from the rest of the industry. If academia is getting influenced by the commercialization process at such an early stage, that's dangerous, as I can see. Because if being a supervisor, I have the resources, that's the best thing you can do. Your PhD is culminating into a product, great, best. But if you are a pioneer of your group, of doing something new, or if you're trying to create a product that has not been created before, PhD is the time where you can expand the application of that product, of that potential product. For example, when I was doing my PhD, I realized what were the different cycle lives possible. What were the different voltages of this particular battery possible when I did something different? But when it came to commercialization, I stuck with one voltage, I stuck with one cycle life that was most common and easy to get. Why? Because it helps you understand the market that you're going for. I gave enough time, I got enough help, be it validation from Australia, Germany, India, whoever it was. You need to back up your science before you enter the commercialization process. So I'm hoping that this does not become a revolutionary trend around the world where creating IP or something like that is the passing mark for a PhD. I hope not.
Yeah, so but I think it should be a balance of both, because and it can be categorized. For example, there could be students who can take up the exploratory way of their PhD, like who really wants to research, and there could be entrepreneurial kind of PhD. I think in BITS Pilani they have started this cell for the PhD students, where they are aiding the aspiring PhDs who really want to marketize, or not marketize, but who can scale it into a business, whatever product they are building. So I think there could be a exploratory mindset, and the other could be a business mindset or entrepreneurial
In
mindset
India,
that
I have come across those industrial partnerships and cells. And the good thing is that the basic sciences has been covered. So for example, the PhD student who is getting that industrial PhD, or whatever the word is for that, they have already published enough papers during their masters, or during the tenure through other students, that creating that product is easier. because someone has done it before. You have a lot of papers on the manufacturing or packaging, and now you're doing something better, something cheaper, something more, like easy for the market, and so on and so forth. And I think you're absolutely right. That should be encouraged, where you have got that infrastructure where it allows you to flourish and there's no pressure.
Yeah, because in many of the if you see in India, we struggle for PhD positions, and we want to get. I mean, even if you are a smart chap, you will struggle to get into the good universities. But in some countries where there is a population drop, for example, countries like Japan, most countries in Europe, where there is a population drop, the PhD positions are less attractive. So students are not so much eager to go to the BSc, then MSc, and then to a PhD. So and to I mean my point is that in the coming future we need to keep the idea of PhD still cool. That is,
Yeah.
students and the young ones, because a PhD also lost its charm because of this bureaucracy in the academia. So we have to keep evolving in such way that it keeps attracting the Gen Z, because okay, we are done, our generation is done, but for Gen Z, to convince them for doing research for so long, because the generational mindset is also there. it will
Yes.
it is evolving, and if you don't
Yeah.
address the challenges of those, or the gaps in between the generational mindset, it will suffer. The academia will suffer in a way, because what was normal for us to sit down and work for a 10-hour long schedule or long hours of working is not in the case with the Gen Z, and they think in a very different way. So my point is that PhDs, to survive as a institution and as a course, it needs to be addressing the generational gap challenges also. Okay, let's move on to your entrepreneurial journey. So after you finished your research, how smooth or how rough it was to go from research lab into the investor's boardroom?
I think it was one of the worst periods of my life, because when you're doing your PhD, when you are presenting in science conferences or whatever, you're very proud of the data that you're producing, right? You do not have to have the best battery performance in the room, but as long as it's quality data, you know that you will be heard. Right, your data matters, the analytical methods, that matters. When it comes to business, your vision matters. What do you think this product is going to be capable of in the next decade? Which markets are you looking into, and stuff like that, right? So I had a vision. I have grown up, like all Indians, I think we have grown up in energy poverty. Like, we knew that we would have power cuts from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And that is when I would sit and study. So candlelight, with my books, doing that R.D. Sharma, stuff, it's instilled, it's burned in my brain. So energy poverty, I think this word was coined maybe 8 to 10 years ago. We had no idea that we were living in energy poverty, right? But yeah, so when the time came to decide whether I wanted to go for a postdoc or if I wanted to go for this entrepreneurial journey, I attended a couple of commercialization workshops where I was asked to pitch in front of mock investors. So this was a workshop for 2 days. I knew that aluminum ion batteries was my PhD, so obviously I had no other product to think about. And I remember my company in that workshop was called Alibat, aluminum batteries. I don't know why I coined it like that.
Batman, woman Batman. I
As
don't
soon
know.
as, I mean, I don't know, it was really, really stupid, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun. So on the second day, when I went in front of these mock investors, right, and I pitched, whether my energy changed, my energy was entirely different, because I was trying to sell my vision. I was trying to convince these people sitting in front of me that, look, you need to give me money so that people can use this tech. People can enjoy and not grow up with energy poverty. And that is when I knew, that, yeah, maybe postdoc I can get later, but I want to build my tech into something. So my university, because we had filed a patent, my university did a preliminary due diligence, which means they try to figure out if this tech is converted into a product, what is the size of the market that's going to use it, and what are the core advantages that this tech offers over the other batteries that currently exist in the market. Now, that feedback was really positive. So that was another boost. But then comes thinking about the structure of the company. Who becomes the CEO? Who becomes the CTO? What happens to the patent? Who owns the IP? I was the inventor, but the university rules were such that they owned the IP. And today they own the IP. The IP has been exclusively licensed to Tasman Iron, but it took me 1.5 years to actually reach the number of shares that I wanted for my company. So I'll give you an example. On day zero, when there were no investors in the picture, I was being offered 16% of the shares of my company. And the rest was going to the university. Why? Because I was a PhD student and I was on the university campus when I did my PhD. Ultimately, a founder like me needed a founder friendly investor. And the day we signed this term sheet or whatever, I had 80% of the shares. So that 1.5 year of journey was not smooth at all because I cannot fight. You do not want to come across as someone who is fighting for their life. You want to show confidence. You want to be passionate, right? But you cannot be angry about how things are being unfair around you. So what I did was I had a lot of mentors around me. I had a lot of cheerleaders around me, and I had hundreds of stupid questions because I was a researcher coming from a science background. I do not know what a term sheet means, which comes from an investor. I do not know what goes into a pitch deck when I'm pitching in front of a potential investor. So I had a lot of stupid questions and I asked all of those questions. And I did not shy away. Like, I did not think that, what if, they think that I'm stupid or anything. So eventually those people trusted in me because they realized that, yep, she's serious about it. She's crazy about Tasman and she wants to build this product. She wants people to use aluminum ion batteries. So that is when I think I started getting the right advice. I started getting confidence myself. And I realized that I do not want to be the CTO. I want to be the CEO. I want to run the company. I want to make sure that whoever is working with me is going with my vision because I understand the tech. It's a battery company. It's very easy for everyone to understand how a battery works, but only I can convince investors to why are we not getting into the EV sector, but we are going into stationary storage applications, right? So yeah, those 1.5 years, it was me learning the ABC of commercialization. Not easy,
So,
but everyone can do it as long as they have the dare of asking stupid questions. Very easy.
and sometimes facing stupid people.
Yeah, but you cannot show that on your face. I used to have a very expressive face, but I changed. I changed my soul for this job. Yes, poker face becomes
So,
important.
just to frame it in a way that your battery sparked at the investor's table when you enter.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it is very interesting because many people think that because after this Elon Musk thing happened, everyone wants to be that the star
Mhm.
entrepreneur,
Mhm.
and little people know about the struggles which are there inside it. Once you get into the market, once you have investors, once you have consumers, and you are in between, and both of them are trying to, like, you are the two sides of a tug of war going on, and your soul is getting parted away in between. That is, I think, a real explanation of a CEO. So once you get into it, you need to be understanding that entrepreneurial journey is not so easy smooth as it looks, or as fancy it
It
looks
changes you
from.
completely.
Yeah,
It
and changes you as a
changes.
person.
Yeah, it does. It does. Like, I know I'm not the same person I was 6 years ago in a good way. And I'm very happy that those changes happened because, yes, as you said, you're acting as the bridge between your employees and the investors, and eventually when the customers come in or whatever. But every step of the way, you have to prove it to your investors. You have to prove that whatever decisions you're making is okay. So, for example, not every shareholder or investor in your company is going to understand how the battery industry works. It's your job. So, if I tell my investor today that, hey, you know what, I'm going to go expand my business to Australia, why is he going to support me? I need to create a proper explanation around why am I thinking of making the move to Australia. I need to back up my decisions with information, with reports, and so on and so forth. And these reports are mostly about the conversations I've had with people in Australia, and they want Tasmanian to be there, right? So You are assuring people, your investors, your board, every time there is a decision that needs to be made, and that is not easy. Like, yeah, you feel that, oh, I'm the CEO, I'm confident, I'm this, I'm that. But you are a responsible person. You're responsible for all your decisions. Most CEOs, they don't put in their money. It's the investors' money, right? So you have to be very cautious of how you are using that money. It's a young startup. Elon Musk deserves the stardom that he has because of what he has done. Like, I will not support his Twitter ideologies, of course, but as an entrepreneur, as in when he started, he is everyone's dream because he dared to do so. He understood the challenges, he accepted whatever was around him. He was not exactly defiant, he was bold. And that is what makes you, like, courageous, that, yep, I'm not going to be interfering with others or whatever. I'm going to silently learn and build my business. So it's tough. It's not a sparkly, shiny job profile that people think it is. And especially for a deep tech company, I think when you're building a tangible product that you can hold in your hand, you need to be aware of so many things. Cost is one, safety is one. If I think India is my market, which states am I thinking about? What temperature conditions are we thinking about? So you know that you have at least 7 to 8 years of research and development ahead of you. So if you are ready to sign up for that, then entrepreneurship is for you.
Yeah, especially coming from a person who just won the entrepreneurial World Cup championship. You won in Dubai.
Yeah, that was the entrepreneurship World Cup in Riyadh. So this was organized by Microsoft and the Saudi Arabian government, because in the past 5 years, Saudi Arabia has been trying to attract deep tech companies, and so there were more than 10,000 applicants, and we got to learn about that much later. So there were more than 10,000 applications. So Tasman and I got into the top 1,000. Then we got into the top 250. Now, these top 250 startups were required to attend this boot camp. And this boot camp, because I'm in New Zealand, the time was such that I was attending these boot camps from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. for 3 days. So, a startup life requires a lot of sacrifices, personal, physical, and professional as well. And eventually the top 100 got invited to Saudi Arabia, and we pitched, I think, almost like 4 times. So top 100 to top 60 to top 30 to top 24, and so on and so forth. Thankfully, in the pre-revenue category, which is before you make any money by product sales, Tasman and won the first prize, and we got money. So that was always the biggest win for any startup, like getting free money.
And also, not only you made, I mean, as a friends, of course, our magic friends, we are so proud of you. But also, not only making India proud, I think you are making New Zealand also proud. You got into the Kiwi 40 under 40. So, I mean,
Yes.
congratulations for that. And
Thank
I
you.
don't know,
Thank you.
you are a role model for not only the Indian girls, but girls in New Zealand. So it's so amazing to hear that. And how does it feels, and how do you come to know about it that you have been awarded so and so?
So they reach out to you. They know about you. They have their colleagues telling them about you, and then they reach out and they're like, "Hey, this is what we want to do." So the 40 under 40 thing was not exactly my doing, right? Like, whatever I had done, they noticed it, and I got in. The one thing I would want any aspiring, entrepreneurial person to know is, keep looking for opportunities. Keep Googling where you can earn money from. So, for example, as a startup founder, we are always thinking about money. You become extremely money minded. On a funny note, do you know that song, that Katrina song, Paisa Paisa? Kyun paisa paisa karte?
Yes, that might be the investor thinking.
That's me. That's literally me every day. So all you're thinking about is, how do I get money into my company? So be it accelerators, be it, like all of these competitions where you can have free money, you always keep applying. So that's what I did.
Yes, so as we said, the money is the fuel for your car. I mean, if your company is a car, money is the fuel. The fuel goes down, the
Absolutely.
company goes down. So
Yeah.
of course it
Yeah.
is, as a CEO you should. But I think it also develops over the time, the mentality. I mean, like you said that, okay, I'm always thinking about the money. because of the requirements, of course.
Yes.
But I think as a CEO, a person develops in such a way. Actually, it's not the money, but it's the responsibility feeling inside your brain which is asking you to perform in a way or look for these directions which are money oriented. So I mean, for a CEO, I think it's like the father or mother of the family, and they have to make sure that every night on the dinner table there is food.
Yeah,
So
you are the
because of
breadwinner
that,
of that
the
family.
money,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yes, yes,
so
totally.
money is not only paying your employee's salary and your salary, but it is also carrying out the research and development work. The reason why every founder is thinking about raising money is because it brings you closer to getting that product out into the world. So that is why, like money from the right
Exactly.
sources. Yeah, it becomes extremely crucial.
And because it's, I think there is also a difference between the, as you mentioned, that there is a product which you can feel by your senses, hold it in your hand, and you can go and tell people, ah, look, this is the product which anyone can see and relate to. Okay, that it exists in the hand. And there are innovations which you really cannot display as a product which is in your hands. It can be a tech on in the form of a software or a digital platform or something like that. Innovation can be multidimensional. So how do you distinguish, I mean, this product in your hand and the digital product, let's say?
So when you, as I said, like when you are working with a tangible product, you need it to be validated by a lot of agencies around the world. So, for example, if I'm creating a product that needs to be launched in India, we know that West Bengal has a different climate and temperature compared to, let's say, Chennai. It's extremely hot. So Chennai, for example, is extremely hot. It's not humid. So when you are looking into a product that is in your hand, you need to make sure that it's taking care of everything in that market. As in, you need to make sure that the cost is okay. You need to make sure that the time it takes to build that tangible product is less. When it comes to software applications, the SaaS companies or apps, that like apps, it's quicker. You create something, your product is right there, you get subscribers and you're good to go. But when it comes to a tangible product, your investors are different. The risk appetite of those investors is different. Job is to make sure that instead of it taking 10 years to build that battery, how am I going to do that in 5? But not claiming that I'm going to do it in 2 years, right? So these are, I think, the biggest differences when it comes to, like SaaS products and tangible products.
It's very interesting. So I think the today the world is of abundance, and I think like 20-30 years we were having the world of scarcity, particularly in
Mhm.
India.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the Western world. But India is also now surging towards this abundance mindset. Some small problems of the society or like basic amenities have been solved to much extent. So I think the new generation will, a new generation by that in me, I mean the people who are now in starting 20s, they think very differently, and they are more courageous than us in many forms. So I would like to ask you that finally, if you would like to suggest a navigation pathway in a concise way, of course, and then give a guidance to the students who are looking for a career in entrepreneurship or in academia.
The one thing I want to mention is that it's very different. Like, my advice will be very different for the two genders. So this world for women
Yes,
doesn't
exactly.
matter.
This is a very important point.
Yes. So it doesn't matter if you're an Indian or whoever. When you're a female founder, you have to be prepared for not only sexism, but ageism. So if instead of me, there was a 34-year-old man in front of an investor, the conversations are different. So when I say conversations are different, I mean to say that some of the people, they do not ask questions around, oh, you're so young to run a company. but I have received almost maybe 10 to 12 times, and it's not investors, of course. It's not only investors. I have come across people in conferences, like distant colleagues and stuff who are in the same industry. So women have to go through ageism and sexism, and I think I'm blessed that I haven't come across racism in New Zealand. New Zealand is one of the best countries for that matter. So that is why, reiterating to the fact that if you're a woman founder, being bold, asking questions to make sure that you understand what is happening around you becomes more and more important. Because some of the men around us find it easy to make decisions on our behalf. Why? For example, 10 years ago or 7 years ago, I smiled a lot. I still do, but my smile would be taken as an agreement to whatever decision was being made. And that was unacceptable to me. So I think it's important for women to be very, very vocal about what they need, what they want, and if the concept is not clear, if um, the conversations are not going in their direction, raise your voice. It's important. I mean, in general, I think the one thing I've always told the budding entrepreneurs is make sure you understand this industry before you enter it. It's not easy. I mean, nothing I think in this world today is easy, but make sure you're not entering it with false expectations. Make sure that you understand what you're signing up for, because the days are going to be tough. And as long as you understand that it's going to be a long journey, it's fine. It's fine. Just make sure that even on hard days, you need your cheerleaders around you.
Exactly. I'm glad that you mentioned this point of the specific gender suggestion, because I think our podcast, would be very helpful for specifically the young woman. I always
Yes.
look up, in women in science, I always look up to the most badass person I can think of is the lady who got the Nobel Prize 2 times, that is Marie Curie. And I cannot think of a male scientist who won the Nobel Prize for Science 2 times. So that is quite interesting. So if ever you feel down, I'm saying to the young woman, like, please, it is my sincere request, please go and read the biography of Marie Curie, because I couldn't find a more inspirational woman in science than her. And she died because of the radioactive material she was working on her labs. And still, she gave the world such brilliant science for us. So that is one takeaway also. And of course, what Shalini suggested, that the woman needs to understand the environment, I guess, where they are. If they feel uncomfortable about any aspect of that environment, they should be raising the voice, and they should be ready to overcome all these challenges which are being specifically focused on them. So thank you very much, Shalini, for your kind words. And that will be all for today. And we will be joining soon with a new guest in science, and looking forward for the next podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Okay, so